Good evening, everybody, and welcome into the latest episode of FFPC Insider Access here live on the Better Sports Network. My name is Eric Balkman. Connect with me on X at Eric Balkman, EricBalkman. You know me from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and, of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Pleased to be welcoming in back onto this program my good buddy and cheesehead, Pat Fitzmaurice, from FantasyPros. You know his work there, of course, with betting pros as well, at Fitz_FF. Pat, we were talking a little bit before the show. Ironically, both wore Brewers hats tonight because we have moved on as Packers fans to the baseball season. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Eric. Great to be back with you. And people might not believe it, but my appearance on this show was scheduled like months ago. It wasn't just like you needing a fellow cheesehead to lick our wounds together on this show. It was actually pre-planned, and we didn't know we were going to be, sharing misery.
No, we thought we'd be previewing a divisional round game for Green Bay, and it wasn't in the cards. I think I do have, we got some Packers stuff to talk about in this first segment, so we'll definitely get into that as well. Coming up on tonight's show, Pat and I are going to go around the NFL, leading off with some breaking news, actually, that I just saw from about 10, 15 minutes ago regarding a potential new OC in New York. That's what we're going to lead off the show with. Plus, we're going to give you a look at the FFPC Playoff Challenge number 2. It is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get into all 4 divisional games this weekend with the Bills, Broncos, Seahawks, Niners, of course, the Patriots, Texans, and then on Sunday, late Sunday afternoon / early Sunday evening, the Bears Rams game. And then we'll actually put together a couple of Playoff Challenge 2 lineups ourselves tonight. If you're wondering what the FFPC Playoff Challenge 2 is, it is one last big score attempt that you can make at myffpc.com yet this fantasy football season. No matter what happened to you during the regular season or the wild card round, maybe in the world famous FFPC Playoff Challenge, whatever happened this year, throw it all out the window because you have a chance at a $100,000 grand prize. Just a $200 entry. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're looking at an 8-person lineup. 1 player per team in the NFL that's remaining. So if you want Matthew Stafford, you can't have Puka Nacua. If you want Bo Nix, you can't have Cortland Sutton, that kind of thing. 1 player per team, double points in the big game, the final game of the season. Register now, myffpc.com. By the way, you can also jump in for $35 and still be eligible for a $25,000 grand prize. That's all at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. All right, Fitz, let's get into this here. And we were talking about this before the show started, whether or not the Giants had an OC. And basically what we're looking at here is the report that we just got from Peter Schrager from ESPN. He says that, and this just came in moments ago, former Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken is one of 5 candidates that are, quote, linked to the Giants OC job. And Schrager actually put Monken at the top of the list. Reportedly, the reason, or one of the reasons John Harbaugh was let go in Baltimore was because he did not want to fire Todd Monken from the OC position there in Baltimore. He's probably the favorite. The other 4 candidates that Schrager listed were the Giants interim head coach Mike Kafka, Rams passing game coordinator Nate Scheelhaas, Commanders offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, and Tommy Rees, who was the offensive coordinator in Cleveland. So, Fitz, breaking news last night just before you went to bed, or maybe you're already in bed, John Harbaugh has agreed to a job to be the new head coach for the New York Giants. And that's the only thing we know right now. The rest of this is speculation based on the offensive coordinator position. Can we glean anything based on what we know right now with drafts starting at the FFPC here shortly? Can we glean anything about how we treat the Jackson Darts, the Malik Neighbors, the Cam Scadaboos, the Theo Johnsons in drafts right now? Certainly this is a good thing for the Giants franchise. Can we say that it's a good thing for the Giants offense as well?
I think we can. I don't know about you, Eric, but I generally have a good feeling about Todd Monken and not just the work he's done with the Ravens, but the work he did before with the Buccaneers. Like I feel like we can trust his offenses generally. And there's a lot to work with. If Malik Neighbors returns intact, I know there's been some concern that he was, last we saw him, he was walking around in a cane. Probably not a good sign considering how long ago his injury was. But Jackson Dart has some pretty good raw tools. Cam Scattaboo to come back from his own major injury, but he was looking like a foundational back. So I would expect the Giants to go out and maybe try to add another offensive lineman and maybe add another skill position player or two. So I feel pretty good about it. John Harbaugh, for the most part, obviously this was not a banner season for the Ravens, and it kind of started with that blown lead and the loss to the Bills in week 1. But for the most part, John Harbaugh ran a pretty tight ship and a really good team for a long time. And I feel like he was probably the best available hire this offseason. So I think if you're interested in investing in Giants, I would feel okay about investing in Giants.
Do you feel like it is how much does, if it is Todd Monken who is hired as the OC, how much does he move the needle for the skill position players that we'll be drafting, Pat?
Yeah, I like it. Like I would not degrade any of those guys from where they were when I set my first set of 2026 rankings a couple of weeks ago. If anything, I would be more inclined to move guys up than down.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And I think that, once we get Monken in or whoever in, we'll be able to formulate better opinions on this right now. But certainly I'm with you, Pat. I think this is a good thing for the Giants. This is a good thing for those skill position guys with John Harbaugh in there right now. Could be even better if Monken takes over. Another coaching change that happened recently in the NFL was Mike Tomlin deciding to step down as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers after 19 years. Art Rooney II was quoted as saying, quote, "Not sure why you waste a year of your life not trying to contend," when he was asked by a reporter about taking a year to rebuild. The Steelers probably should have rebuilt once or twice since Big Ben had hung it up, and they have not. And to their credit, they've had given themselves a fighting chance to make the playoffs every year. Finishing at or above 500 every single year, famously under Mike Tomlin. The fact that Art Rooney is saying this, knowing that they do need some help at the quarterback position here, Pat, I'm not feeling great about the Steelers' offense going forward next year. And obviously, it's going to look a little bit different. I would imagine that Arthur Smith probably will not be back as OC, but I don't know. I mean, there's certainly a chance that maybe he'll even be the head coach there. Who knows? But the Steelers' offense could look different. Aaron Rodgers could be done. It could be DK Metcalf. Kenny Gainwell's a free agent as well. And it could be DK Metcalf, Jaylen Warren, and then a few tight ends that are maybe not the most spectacular names to be talking about here. But I remain down on Pittsburgh here unless they get some sort of innovative mind in at head coach or offensive coordinator. I'm kind of down on Steelers and drafting them early here.
I'm kind of with you. And I see that quote by Art Rooney Jr. and I just want to raise my hand, like, not sure why you would waste a year. So you don't lose by double digits in the first round of the playoffs for another year. Like, obviously that's why. I mean, they were built to get into the playoffs, but not go anywhere from there. And obviously a big part of it is not being able to find a worthy successor to Ben Roethlisberger. And they're not going to be positioned to get a quarterback in the draft. I mean, there's one quarterback in the draft, Eric. It's Fernando Mendoza. And so if you're not picking number one, you're not going to get one. I wonder if the Steelers maybe make a run at our guy, Malik Willis. Mm-hmm. I know they've gone down that road before with sort of a run first quarterback with Justin Fields, and it didn't really work out for them. But maybe Willis isn't necessarily a run first quarterback. I mean, he has obviously made huge strides as a passer under the tutelage of Matt LaFleur. So yeah, like if they can adequately address the quarterback position, and really Malik Willis might be the one guy who I would feel who could make me feel better about the Steelers offense going forward. But they do need to add some skill position talent. They need another running back. They need at least one more wide receiver. I'm not sure they even have an answer at tight end, even though Arthur Smith liked to deploy three of them. But so yeah, there's work to be done on that side of the ball, no question.
What's ironic is the guy who liked Malik Willis so much when he was at the Senior Bowl, it was Mike Tomlin. Was just kept talking him up and saying how great, and so we're already connecting the dots, and then Tomlin throws the monkey wrench into it, like, yeah, I'm not with the Steelers anymore. So it could be funny if Willis actually goes to Pittsburgh without Tomlin. Maybe Tomlin will wish he would have stuck around one more year. That's something that we will decide in the offseason here. We have to look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think are really, really compelling / interesting / exciting / maddening as far as how we're drafting these guys coming up next week, Pat, when FFPC drafts open up. You have 4 guys on this team right now. You have Brian Thomas, who's desperately not trying to be used in the same sentence as Michael Clayton going forward as far as his career goes. You have Jacoby Myers, who was a midseason pickup and since been extended. I think his role is very safe in this offense going forward here. You have Parker Washington, who had really stepped up at the end of the season as well as the playoffs. And you have the with action scoring in the FFPC, dude scores a punt or scores a touchdown on a punt return, you get points for that as well. So that's another pepper in the gumbo of Parker Washington and why you want to draft him. And then there's this guy that they gave up the farm for to trade up to the number 2 spot in the draft last year in Travis Hunter, who looked like he was about to break out until his body broke and he missed the rest of the season. So the question here regarding Travis Hunter, the latest that we have on what the Jaguars have said about him is that he is expected to be a two-way player again in 2026. That's what James Gladstone, the second-year GM, said about him. I wonder for a guy who had 28 catches over 7 games, just under 300 yards, gets in the end zone once. I wonder if we will overrate him because of the draft capital, because of the talent, and then not taking into extent that he is a weapon on defense, really, really good corner. And they got 3 capable, not pass catchers, 3 capable wide receivers, Pat, on this team, as well as a pass-catching tight end. And then if he comes back, a very capable pass-catching running back in Travis Etienne. As much as I love Travis Hunter and love having him on my fantasy team, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze this year. I remain down on Hunter now that with the Jaguars passing game looking radically different than what it was when he was drafted, as well as the fact that he's going to continue to work on the defensive side of the ball. No ratios were given by Gladstone. We don't know if it's 80-20, 70-30, 50-50 or anything like that. But it's a range of outcomes, and I'm not seeing a particularly strong set of outcomes where Travis Hunter pays off this year. Certainly the ADP will reflect ultimately how I feel about him, but as it starts, this is not a target for me at all.
I agree with you in principle, and I like the way you framed all this, Eric. So here's the thing for me. You mentioned the ratios. That is the key. There is a good case to be made that the Jaguars would be better off making Travis Hunter primarily a defensive player and a part-time offensive player now that they've got 3 pretty good weapons in the at receiver. And no one's leaving via free agency, I believe. I don't think any of those guys are free agents. I think they're obviously, Parker Washington and BTJ still on their rookie deals, and I think they've got at least another year on Jacoby Myers. But I want the slot receiver for Jacksonville. I don't want the outside guys, and to be honest, that includes Jacoby Myers. Like Trevor Lawrence just does not throw to his outside guys, especially his X. It seems he likes throwing to the slot guys and the tight ends. And we remember that I think it was one was 2022 and one was 2023. I can't remember which, but there was the 1,100 yard Christian Kirk season. I think that was the 2022. And there was the 114 catch season for Evan Engram. And I think that was 2023, or maybe I'm reversing those.
Well, regardless,
here nor there.
Yeah.
He's just, I don't want an outside receiver paired with Trevor Lawrence. I'm not going to be touching Brian Thomas Jr. and maybe not Jacoby Myers, because I think he's going to be overpriced relative to what I expect from him. But like, I just want to figure out and get some sort of indication from Jacksonville about how they are going to use Travis Hunter. Because if they are planning to make him the primary slot guy still, then I think Parker Washington is going to be overdrafted, and maybe Travis Hunter will be underdrafted because people will think things are so crowded. It's just a question of whether Jacksonville gives us any information that clears that up, or whether they leave that opaque all the way till, kickoff of week 1, which would really stink. Like we want clarity, and we'll see whether they're willing to give us any.
You know, what's funny is we oftentimes say we'll use it as a crutch where there'll be a split backfield. You think of Seattle take Seattle or Carolina, for example, this year with Dowdle, with Hubbard, with Walker and Charbonnet. A lot of times we'll say, well, I'll just take whatever guy's cheaper. Like once the first guy goes, then I'll take the second guy, right? You can make the case that that's what you should be doing early in Jackson, or early in drafts with these Jacksonville receivers, right? See how people are handling Washington and Hunter and Thomas. And I'll say this about Thomas. You're right about not being interested in him as a Jaguar this season, but there is a non-zero chance, especially with how crowded that receiver room is all of a sudden, that they move him this offseason. And he ends up finding a really, really good situation, a fresh start somewhere else, and he ends up being a value. Now, I'm not saying that's likely to happen. I think a lot of times we talk about trades in the NFL. 80% of the time, 90% of the time, those trades don't happen. But I know that there are smart people talking about that this guy is not exactly the greatest fit for Liam Cohen's offense, and that they have other guys that are better off on the field with Thomas not out there, and he might flourish in a different situation. So if he tumbles a little bit, you got to be looking at him as well. Not necessarily, again, because he's going to be a Jaguar this year, but maybe if he's elsewhere, that's and I'm not saying like you target him because he's going to get traded. You got to read the room, find out how people are handling him in drafts, and then maybe strike at that point. Okay. Speaking of the upcoming NFL season, we got an NFL draft coming up in a few months, and we have one Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon declaring for the NFL draft. If only he would have stayed one more year with Dante Moore throwing the football to him, maybe he would have been even drafted higher. But as it stands, this dude is probably going to be a first-round pick. Certainly the best tight end in this draft, if not the best, one of the best. He's only 20 years old. He was 2 years ago as a sophomore, 24 catches, 300+ yards, 2 touchdowns on the champions of the Big Ten. That was Oregon 2 years ago. Last year, he tops 50 catches, 500 yards, 8 touchdowns, and that was tops among all tight ends in college this past year. I think that, especially with tight end premium scoring with the FFPC, when it comes to rookie drafts, and we'll see where this guy ends up, and obviously opportunity situation is going to affect his status in rookie drafts. But before that, when we have these redraft leagues, Pat, Kenyon Sadiq is a very, very interesting guy. If you wait on tight end to grab him as your second tight end this year, I'm not saying he's Harold Fanta Jr. because he's not, but he could have a similar, if not as impactful impact on your fantasy squads this season. Dude catches a lot of passes. He's very athletic, and certainly in the right situation, he could flourish, and you won't have to draft him. At least I don't think you'll have to draft him as one of the top 12 tight ends.
Absolute freak athlete. People are going to be really excited about him after the combine, because he is going to go in and he's going to run a 4.5 or maybe a sub 4.5 if he does some speed training. I think he already has a 41.5-inch vertical jump on the books. Like good hands, good body control. And as you said, I mean, he doesn't turn 21 until March. I can't remember if it's before or after the draft or he turns 21, but like, yeah, there's a lot to like here. Plus he's 245 pounds with room to add weight, and apparently very dedicated to improving as a blocker. So it looks like he's going to be a 3-down tight end. Mm-hmm. Now, some of his like underlying metrics are maybe a little lacking. Like 19.3% target rate on his routes run, 1.62 yards per route run, and 11 yards per catch. Those are just okay numbers. But then again, we're talking about a very young prospect with these amazing athletic traits. So I'm not really going to hold that against him. And just because some of the underlying metrics aren't ideal. So I like him a lot. And if you want the discount version of Kenyon Sadiq, I also really like Eli Stowers of Vanderbilt, who's similarly freakish as far as the athleticism. The only thing with Stowers is he's about 10, 12 pounds lighter than Sadiq and probably is not going to be able to play in line. So that's always most likely going to limit his snap shares at the NFL level because he's going to be sort of a move tight end H-back type guy.
So do you think Sadiq is a slam dunk first round pick in the real NFL draft?
What I'm basically yes on all the mocks I'm seeing, he's going like mid first round.
Okay.
He's basically going where Tyler Warren went last year.
Interesting.
Around 14 or whatever it was. So, yeah.
You know, Pat, we're not going to have, I mean, it's so early in the season and I probably won't have a chance to get you on again during like the lead up to rookie drafts. I am of the opinion that most years, not every year, but most years that I can remember, right around late December, early January, a lot of people are very down. Not only that, but a lot of people are down right after the rookie drafts from the previous year. They say, oh, next year's class is not that good. Comes in December and January. Next year's class isn't that good. And then by, late March, April, we're like, oh my God, look at all the depth of talent in this class. It's just insane. I always laugh about that because I think that's time is a flat circle, as Russ Cole would say. That's the situation we're always in at the start of the NFL draft. Do you believe this year is different? Do you believe that once we get to late April and everybody's getting excited to watch the draft in Pittsburgh, do you believe that we'll still be saying that we're still saying like, yeah, this isn't the greatest draft class for fantasy football? Do you believe that to be the case this year?
I know what you mean, Eric. We are going to talk ourselves into this class, I think, to some degree, but ultimately, I do think it's a little bit of a down class. Like wide receiver is deep and sort of interesting, or at least there are a lot of interesting prospects. I don't know if it's truly deep, but I don't know if there's a surefire star at wide receiver. And, running back, Jeremiah Love is a phenomenal prospect. And after that, it gets iffy. There just are not many sure things. It's lacking in star power. And other than a wide receiver, I think it might be lacking in depth. So, and this class is just not going to look good coming in between what was a really good 2025 class and what is likely to be just a mega class in 2027. So this class, I think, definitely pales in comparison to what preceded it and what's going to follow it.
So for somebody who may be holding two separate first-round picks in this year's rookie draft in one of my dynasty leagues, would I be better off trying to move one of those picks in hopes that I could have two? It's better to have two first-rounders in 2027 rather than 2026, understanding that the most important year of dynasty is this year, but also understanding that the 2027 value of those first rounders might be a little bit higher at the same time of the year than the 2026 first rounders.
I would rather have two 2027s than two 2026s. And I'd be willing to take the sacrifice of a year's worth of time to make that exchange. Although if either of those 2026s are the 101 or the 102 and it's super flex, it's kind of they're two slam dunks in the draft. And I think Fernando Mendoza is a slam dunk.
Okay.
Like I just think he's going to be no worse than a league average starting quarterback. And Jeremiah Love is going to be a star probably. So, but other than that, I mean, like the talent is going to go deep into the second round of like guys with star potential in 2027. So I'd rather have the picks then.
I think we'll have plenty more time to talk about that. But I wanted to get your take on that for sure, Pat, as we move on. Our long national nightmare is over. Kevin Patullo, no longer the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. this seemed to be just a crony hire by, at least it was reported in several spots that I read, that this was just Nick Sirianni hiring one of his buddies. And it didn't work out. And quite frankly, I think from what I've seen from some Philly fans and beat writers, it seems like Sirianni probably should have made this change in season when it was going the way that it was. Now we look forward to a 2026 year with all of these Eagles seemingly back. We'll see what happens with A.J. Brown. But I am always a big believer in buying proven players coming off down years. And there's a lot of proven players on this Eagles roster that are coming off of down years. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts. Now, I think the only one I'm kind of worried about as far as what could be a continuation of less than stellar performances is Jalen Hurts. I'm a little bit more nervous about him than the other three. Now that Patullo's gone, we'll have to see who the new offensive coordinator is. But I got to believe that just about anybody that Sirianni hires here it's not going to dampen my excitement of drafting these 4 players this year. 4 players that I believe, Pat, are going to be depressed in drafts because of how their season ended and how they really didn't come through for most fantasy owners over the course of the season.
I can't remember a more disappointing, underachieving offense. Just for the amount of talent they have, not only at the skill positions, but on the offensive line. This was just a bizarre failure to launch for the Eagles this year. So yes, I am in principle with you on that, Eric. Like I'm with you on Hurts too. Like he was like, Hurts is a decent enough passer, but I mean, he had 4 straight years where he had at least 650 rushing yards and double-digit touchdowns, and he didn't get that. Excuse me, it was at least 600 600. And this year only 421 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns after being at least 600 and at least 10 touchdowns in each of the previous 4 seasons. So when the rushing numbers weren't there, they changed. They went from the tush push being their favorite play to that little shovel pass to Dallas Goedert being their favorite goal line play. And Dallas Goedert had a goal line bonanza as a result and was the one guy who kind of paid dividends in this offense. But yeah, I mean, like Saquon, not a surprise that he couldn't recapture the same sort of numbers that he had in 2024, but like not a total collapse. He was fine. AJ Brown, slow start, but then he got it going. Devonta Smith was a little, he was a disappointment. I had Devonta Smith in a lot of leagues. He disappointed, no question. So, but I'm with you. Bringing a competent offensive coordinator, I think things are going to be okay.
I think, and I think they could be better than okay too. We'll see what happens with that division next year, but the Eagles really ran through it pretty good the last 2 years. Obviously, they met the Commanders in the NFC Championship last year, but they destroyed them there. And then they're the first team, I think, in like 20 some years to win the NFC East back-to-back years. And I think that kind of hurts you for fantasy as well, because they didn't have to be as competitive as they probably needed to be. Now let's look at this division. Jaden Daniels is healthy. John Harbaugh's in New York. Dallas, I expect them to franchise Pickens and either bring back Javonte Williams or another competent running back. I think that the division is going to be tougher this year, and you're going to need to squeeze more production out of Brown, out of Smith, Goddard, Barkley, Hurts, all those guys. Do you believe that A.J. Brown gets moved this offseason, if I'm asking you right now?
Yeah.
I don't think he does, just me personally. And I don't really have any, it's just speculation for me. I don't have any inside sources or anything like that. I just believe that when it comes down to it, this dude is not hit 30 years old. He is so prolific. I think he'll be rejuvenated by a new OC. And I think the Eagles understand that they're a better football team with him than without him. That's my personal take.
And he's never flat out said, I want out.
Right.
To my knowledge. Like, I don't think, yes, he's sulked and pouted and got into sideline spats, but I don't think he's ever gone on record as like demanding a trade or anything like that. So I think you're probably right about that. And by the way, you know what made this offense all the more disappointing, Eric? Think about the defenses that were in their division this year. The Giants, the Cowboys, and the Commanders. Like 3 terrible defenses, and they got to beat up on those teams in 6 games. And I mean, just didn't happen. Like, they should have gone to town in those games, and for the most part, just couldn't capitalize.
It's kind of reminiscent of like the Chiefs recently, over the last couple of years. The Packers definitely this year, where these teams should have been blown out of the water. Like you should have destroyed them right away. And it was sort of like a reminder of the NFL telling us that, look, the difference between good and bad in this league, it's kind of blurry. It's a thin line, and anybody can beat anybody. And certainly Philly, Kansas City, Green Bay, they played with their food a lot this year and last year for a couple of these teams as well, not Philadelphia. And we'll see what happens going forward there as we're already looking forward to drafting Eagles in 2026. Now, what about this? Another proven player coming off a bad year, Lamar Jackson, who for the first time in his career will not have John Harbaugh as his head ball coach. Steve Biscotti, who is the Ravens owner, said he wants Lamar Jackson to be his quarterback. Now, we heard rumors, whispers that perhaps the Ravens wanted to move on from him. We also heard stuff about, and I don't know how reliable this is or how accurate this was, but that the Ravens had to move practice times around to accommodate Lamar Jackson, that he maybe took a Kyler Murray-esque affinity to playing video games as well. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe. I don't know what not to believe here. But clearly the owner wants him back. Eric DaCosta, who is the GM, talked in his season-ending press conference that he not only wants to extend Jackson, but also use part of that cap space to bring in some other players to put around him to be playmakers. I mean, obviously, they've already extended Mark Andrews. They got Zay Flowers there. I think they extended Rashad Bateman before the start of the season as well. But there's still room for adding more players here. I think the biggest thing with him this year was that he was hurt and that he was playing hurt and he didn't let on. And sometimes I think when we watch a player not play to the level we're accustomed to, a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people will automatically assume he's dogging it, that he's just not giving it his all. And I'm of the opinion that that's not how Lamar Jackson works. That's not how he plays. That's not what we've seen in the past. I think he was hurt. I think he came back too soon from injury to try to make this playoff push, which they almost pulled off. Sans a missed Tyler Loop kick at the end of the regular season, the Ravens are in the playoffs here. So I'm very excited to draft Lamar Jackson next year. And I feel like I'll get a decent bargain on him with players like Drake May, moving up in front of him. Obviously, Jaden Daniels coming back from injury. There's going to be a lot of people on him. Certainly Josh Allen as well. But I look forward to drafting Lamar Jackson in several leagues next year because I think it's going to pay off.
I think so too. I would like to get the discount on him just because there were enough things. He ran a lot less this year. Just his rushing attempts per game way down, rushing yardage way down. And if you're not getting the rushing goodies from Lamar Jackson, it's just a less appealing overall package. But like the passing numbers were 8.4 yards per attempt is still pretty elite. And it wasn't as high as it was last year, but like he was still an effective quarterback considering Zay Flowers was probably the only good pass catcher he had. I would love to see the Ravens go out and get another playmaker. I guess it's not going to be a tight end since they extended Andrews, but another receiver, like preferably a big X maybe who's more effective than Rashad Bateman or a washed up DeAndre Hopkins. So I agree with you though. The weirdest thing to me was his, and maybe this is injuries, Eric, but just his reluctance to run relative to past seasons.
And when he did, and obviously based on what I said, I'm assuming that was because of dealing with an injury. But there is a couple of times, Pat, when I saw him run, and he's getting chased down by defensive ends. I'm like, who's this guy wearing Lamar Jackson's jersey? Because that's clearly not Lamar Jackson getting chased down by defensive line. So I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping it was injury. I'll be drafting him as such. But you're right. I mean, the discount is paramount to this. If I'm not getting a discount on Lamar Jackson, then I don't really see the reason to pay sticker value on this guy coming off this bad of a year.
Yeah, Eric, one thing to add, since he became a full-time starter in 2019, the fewest rushing yards per game he had averaged was 51.3. This year he was 26.8. Oh. And he left some games early, but still that's like half of what his previous worst season was. Like that is a big drop off.
That is wild. I did not realize it was that bad, but holy cow. Well, another quarterback situation that we have to talk about, and certainly this isn't as good of one as Baltimore. Let's go to the other purple in the NFC, JJ McCarthy and the Vikings. Now, Kevin O'Connell stated earlier this week that he wants a, quote, competitive situation at quarterback, but he also did say, quote, he said JJ McCarthy is, quote, going to be a major emphasis, but the competition is going to help the room. It's going to help the entire team. So it sounds like JJ McCarthy's still the guy. I have been of the opinion, I never really thought this guy was going to revolutionize the position or anything like that. But I always thought with the draft capital that McCarthy had, him having a quarterback whisperer type coach and Kevin O'Connell, who's churned out some pretty good quarterback performances from lesser players before. I always thought that McCarthy was going to be fine, that he was going to be a good NFL quarterback and probably a solid fantasy one at that. Now, without this, normally you'd like to hear this big over-ringing endorsement from the Vikings, and we're not getting that right now. And Kevin O'Connell's talking about competition. You drafted this guy as high as you did. You on the outside, you should be talking him up and saying how, he just needs some confidence. He needs more reps. He needs help from the guys around him. Like, I'm not hearing that at all. And I'm wondering if, if the Vikings aren't being effusive in their praise for McCarthy, maybe I shouldn't be effusive in my drafting of JJ McCarthy as like a top 15 or top 20 quarterback this season. I'm not as bullish as I was based on what I'm hearing from O'Connell and the GM there too as well.
They're going to bring in some sort of competition. It's just going to be interesting to see what they do, whether they, Daniel Jones is a free agent. I know he's coming off the major injury. Anthony Richardson. I guess I'm not interested or won't be interested in drafting whoever the Vikings have at quarterback. Like, no one wants to have the Vikings quarterback in 2026. It's just a matter of, can you draft Justin Jefferson? Because I do think I'll be okay with drafting Justin Jefferson, presumably at a major discount, because I know that either JJ McCarthy is going to work out or it's going to be a real short leash and they're going to yank him quickly. It's just, do they have some sort of suitable alternative, or are they, going to try to salvage Anthony Richardson or something where it could be just as bad with the alternative as it would be with McCarthy? So I'm fascinated to see. And, Eric, we're Packers fans. We don't like the Vikings. No. Perverse way. I can't wait to see what they do with their second quarterback position.
I will be very intrigued. And the only other thing too, Minnesota gets the fourth place schedule next year as well for the NFC North. So maybe it'll be a little bit easier for the Vikings to churn out some fantasy value. We got to see what they do in the backfield as well with Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, what have you. Now, another Viking that we need to talk about here, who is in the news this week for the wrong reasons, that's Jordan Addison, arrested for probable cause trespassing. Kevin O'Connell didn't talk about it because it was pretty fresh and he was still learning about it, obviously, so that makes sense. They have to decide whether they are going to extend the fifth-year option on him or perhaps talk about agreeing to more of a long-term deal here. And Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, who is the GM in Minnesota, said this, and I thought this is interesting. Jordan is unique because 99% of the times that Jordan Addison is a Viking, he's a joy to be around. He's incredibly intelligent, confident, responsible. And then it's like all of us. What are you like on those 1% of the days? Is it the type of thing that draws attention or not? Obviously, that's something we have to consider when you're talking about long-term ramifications of a contract extension and different things like that, or letting somebody like Jalen Naylor leave, end quote. Now, listen, I get the whole, we're human beings. We can't be perfect and a joy to be around every single day of every single week, month, year. Like, we can't, right? But it's weird that he would come out and say that about Addison. To me, when you say that, and this is how I took it, Pat, maybe you took it a different way, but to me, when you say something like this, you have to, when you say something like this, I don't think you mean 99%. I think you mean like 80%. Or 75%, right? Like, I don't think this is a 99% of the time thing. And it stinks because Addison, coming up until the start of this season, was among the all-time leaders in NFL history as far as end zone targets, end zone targets. And he's been an end zone target for his entire career, even when he was a rookie. So there's a lot to like about Addison. And if McCarthy takes a step forward here, we're loving Addison. And then he goes and does something like this. Not the first time he's been in trouble with the law either. And so now you have more questions than answers with Addison. I'm a volume drafter, so I'm probably going to pick him up here or there. But I think more than likely, I am kind of breaking ties against Jordan Addison in drafts when I'm considering him. And I don't think the result of this, trespassing thing or any of the legal issues, I don't think that's going to change anything because he just continues to be in the news for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, and I wonder if there might be like a wrist slap suspension for him at least next year, a game or two as a result of this. I'm with you. I think he's wildly talented, the kind of guy who could maybe be considered a wide receiver one if he were playing somewhere where he wasn't sharing targets with Justin Jefferson. But man, like, he is not doing himself any favors with this. And it does come in a difficult spot for Kwesi when he's got to decide what to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's one of the trickier guys to handle in 2026 drafts because we've got the legal situation with him and we've got the quarterback situation with Jordan Addison. So one of those guys you're probably going to want to get at a major discount if you're going to be tempted into taking a chance on him.
I think that Addison, well, you mentioned Jefferson too. I still think there's something there with Hawkinson. And again, we have to see what they do at running back. But if they let Naylor leave, I'll probably be more on board with Addison. But right now, man, it's just difficult to get on board with him going forward. Another guy that had to decide, or his team had to decide whether to pick up the 5th-year option on him or not, was one Bryce Young. And the Carolina Panthers decided to pick that 5th-year option up. Dan Morgan informed the press and the media and the public that they would be doing so. And certainly in 2025, it was a lot like 2024. We saw great signs from Young. We also saw some poor decisions by him as well. He had a career high in drop back success rate, 45%, and adjusted yards per attempt at 6.3. In 3 seasons, excuse me, he's got 49 touchdowns. He's got 30 picks. Morgan did also say that the Panthers were, quote, up in the air about a long-term deal. It seems like they're fine rolling with him in 2026 and 2027. I cannot make up my mind if this guy is good or not, Pat. I see good things with him, and then I see absolutely horrific things. Bad decisions, mental mistakes that you probably should not be making at this point in your career anymore. I'm going to phrase this just real simply to you. Is Bryce Young good at football, Pat?
If I have to make that binary call, Eric, I will say no. I think he is a purgatory quarterback. He is not good enough to get you to the promised land, but he's just barely good enough to hold on to a starting spot. And I think that's kind of it, that the Panthers just didn't have a reasonable pivot this year. Next year, there are going to be more quarterbacks available in the draft. And I think they can afford to, they're not ready to get to the mountaintop in 2026. They can afford to have Bryce be their starter. And if Bryce tanks, they're going to probably be positioned to get one of the quarterbacks in next year's draft and plot a new future with a different guy. But for now, we saw the Panthers basically try to hide Bryce Young for a lot of the season. Dave Canales did. Like, I think he had 25 or fewer pass attempts in like half his starts this year. So, yeah, I think they know he's not the guy who's going to lead them long term, but I think they feel like he's a reasonable placeholder for one more year.
And he's good enough to make Tedero McMillan and Jalen Coker valuable in fantasy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Which is, quite frankly, in single quarterback leagues, that's all we care about, right? Because, Bryce Young isn't working out, that's fine. There's a million other quarterbacks. Super flex, it becomes a little bit more problematic if you have to rely on Bryce Young.
Those guys are not going to have their career years with Bryce Young, but like he can still float their fantasy value, no question.
That is, yes. Yeah, exactly. I always said, like, with some of these receivers, excuse me, and it's interesting we're talking about Carolina, because I always thought the perfect quarterback that you wanted for like your stud receiver was the quarterback that was good enough to consistently get the ball to one guy, but not good enough to go through his progressions and get the ball to his second option, his third option. And the example I always come back to is Jake Delhomme and Steve Smith. Delhomme was an expert. He could always get the ball to Steve Smith, but he wasn't a good enough quarterback consistently to work through if Smith was being bracketed or double covered. Couldn't get the ball to anybody else, which was great because then Smith had all these massive seasons where you could feel really confident about drafting him as your top, as your number one receiver, as a top 12 option, sometimes higher than that, because he always did numbers. Delhomme was only good enough to consistently get him the ball, which this is what I always root for in fantasy football as far as stud wide receivers go. Okay, we've waited long enough. Let's talk Packers. Tucker Kraft, as reported by The Athletic's Matt Schneidman, anticipates, not hopes, not planning on, not shooting for, anticipates starting training camp on the PUP list, but sounded confident that he'll play in the season opener. Tucker Kraft told reporters, by the time week 1 rolls around, I'll be 10 months post-surgery and hopefully bulletproofed by then. He was their best offensive weapon this year. And obviously a lot of that had to do with Christian Watson not being on the field at the same time with Kraft. But that week I was at that game against the Panthers when he tore his ACL. No. And I was with my brother and his 2 kids, and we were out getting food because it was right after halftime when it happened. And they announced that Kraft got hurt. And I didn't know what it was. I mean, it could have been a stinger for all I knew. I just got this sick feeling in my stomach. I'm like, I think this is serious. I don't know why. And then I saw it. I'm like, God, this is really bad. And it's bad for fantasy too. Now, if you look at, I believe on FantasyPros ECR for 2026, Tucker Kraft climbed up to tight end 3. Did I see that right, Pat? It's crazy that he's been that high. I love Kraft. I think he's going to have a really good season. I don't know if I love him that much, considering that there's still a decent chance that dude's not going to play in September. Maybe he doesn't come back till October. I don't know. I mean, there's still a lot of questions with Kraft right now. But when he's right, man, he's great for that offense.
Yeah, in the FantasyPros expert consensus rankings, he is tight end 3, in fact, behind Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, and just ahead of Colston Loveland. Now, I've got Loveland ahead of him just because of the injury, but I think we do have reason for optimism, Eric. Like it was a clean ACL tear, no other ligament damage, no MCL, no PCL, anything like that. So, and Tucker Kraft is 25. And generally when young players have a clean ACL tear with no other ligament damage, they come back at pretty close to 100% and usually in under 10 months. So I think we can be cautiously optimistic we're going to get the full Tucker Kraft experience next year.
Yeah, he's young, and he's not like it's not like he's with apologies to Tucker Kraft. He's an athletic guy, but he's not breaking ankles out there, right?
Right. Yes.
He's not one of these quick twitch guys that relies on that for bursts of speed or anything. He's just a really good all around good football player, good blocker. When they run the, as I like to call it, the Lambeau lunge, it's him under center with him being pushed forward by the running backs. They trust him there. So yeah, I like Kraft quite a bit this year. If he's going as the third tight end off the board, yeah, I'm with you. I'd rather have Loveland. There's probably some other guys I'd rather have. But certainly you could reap the benefits if you get a discount on Tucker Kraft in drafts. The other thing I want to say about the Packers here, the report from Adam Schefter, I think this morning, he kind of reiterated it on the Pat McAfee show, that the Packers and Matt LaFleur's representation are working on a new deal to extend him. The new president for the Packers, Ed Policy, said before the season started he doesn't like having coaches and GMs operating on a one-year contract. So it was always going to be they're either trading him, moving on from him, or extending him. And it sounds like both sides right now believe an extension is going to be made. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but because I know there's a lot of super emotionally charged Packers fans, quite frankly, that have wanted him out for a while. I don't think that's the right choice. I know that there would be a ton of teams trying to get Matt LaFleur as their head coach if the Packers decide to move on from him. And I feel like what he has been able to do with Jordan Love and, quite frankly, Malik Willis over the last couple of years, that's the kind of mind I want as the head coach of the team I root for. I will say that his game management, the way he uses timeouts, certain challenges, certain situations of time management has not been good, and it continues to not be good. And I don't know if he's ever going to get better at that. But I also understand, Pat, that there's no perfect coach. Everybody's got their hangups. Everybody is going to screw up from time to time, and there's certain things that they're always never going to be great at, and this could be just one of Matt LaFleur's things. So I hope he's back. I think it's really good for the offense if he does come back. And I know that's not a popular opinion right now, but I think this Packers offense, when we're talking about drafting pieces from it, I feel much more confident drafting them if LaFleur is still the head coach next year.
Yeah, he is. I don't know if he's a great play caller, but he is a great offensive choreographer. And I don't think we saw any better example than when Jordan Love was injured in the first game of 2024 and they had to turn to Malik Willis, who then was, very unproven. And what we had seen from Malik Willis was awful to that point. Mm-hmm. And we came out with these run-heavy game scripts, but man, LaFleur pulled everything out of his bag as far as like the running plays we used in those next two games. And we blew the doors off the Titans, and I can't remember who the second opponent was, but
I want to say it was a Colts, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been. And just like so impressive how the offense looked in Love's absence there. And yeah, I mean, I generally think Matt LaFleur is a good coach, but I was one of the few Packers fans who didn't feel strongly either way. I would have been okay with letting him go. I would have been okay with bringing him back. It was just, I do worry that the late game letdowns are sort of woven into the DNA of this team with Matt LaFleur as head coach. And I don't know why. We've seen it over and over again. And I know people on the outside, non-Packers fans, are like, how could you think of getting rid of this guy? He'd be hired, snapped up by anyone, and he would be. But like, you haven't lived through as many of these late game letdowns as we Packers fans have. I saw something the other day. I forget where this was on Twitter, Eric, but like if you took the win expectations from this year where they were at their peak in the second and third Bears games and the Browns games, like the odds of the Packers losing all three of those games was like 25,000 to 1. I mean, just with leading by multiple scores with, just a scant amount of time left. And like, it's not just those three games either. There have been past meltdowns. So that is really frustrating. But I think if you're investing in Packers players, you feel better about Matt LaFleur being there than anyone else, probably.
Last Packers point I'm going to bring up. This isn't on the rundown, but I'm just thinking out loud about this. When Josh Jacobs signed that free agent deal a couple years ago, it was reported that it's basically like a 2-year deal, and the Packers can get out of it or they can restructure after that. I also think that this dude was playing significantly hurt, and I don't think the offensive line really did him many favors towards the end of the season as well. Do you believe that Josh Jacobs is back as a Packer this coming year? And quite frankly, if he's not, all of a sudden we have to take a harder look at drafts at players like Emmanuel Wilson, Chris Brooks, and dare I say it, Marshawn Lloyd. I mean, this is wild stuff right now. Or maybe he'll just be back with Green Bay in 2026.
I kind of think he's back. I know they could walk away. I would rather boost the offensive line, and I think Wilson and Brooks are both restricted free agents. And I don't know if anyone's going to come in with some giant tender for a running back. That's just kind of not how the league operates. So I think you'll be able to at least take your pick of those two if you're the Packers. If not, bring both of them back. And, you know, I just Marshawn Lloyd, I think, is made of glass at this point. And I don't know if we're ever going to see him actually get meaningful playing time. But I don't know. I kind of want to see Lloyd back, and I would rather we just maybe patch a hole or two on the offensive line.
Yeah, well, they got some decisions to make on the offensive line as well. Something that we'll be paying attention to over the course of the offseason. Before we can get to the offseason, we have to enjoy the postseason. The best way to enjoy that postseason, playing in the FFPC Playoff Challenge 2. No draft, no salary cap, no convoluted rules. Just pick your 8 players that you want for the divisional playoff. Win $100,000 or $25,000, depending upon the entry fee you choose, $200 or $35. One player per team. So if you want Caleb Williams, you can't have Luther Burden. If you want Drake May, you cannot have Ramondre Stevenson. Register now, myffpc.com, myffpc.com. And if you need some help filling out those lineups, Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros is going to help you do that as we take a look at all 4 divisional matchups this weekend. We'll kick it off with the Bills and Broncos. You're watching FFPC Insider Access. Pat Fitzmaurice, Eric Balkman, don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here, Fantasy Alarm, and it's that time of year at the FFPC Playoff Challenge. This is one of my very favorite contests. Forget about all your redraft leagues. Forget about DFS. This is one last chance for glory, and it comes during the NFL playoffs. Yes, you can go in with no salaries, no drafts, no convoluted stuff, and create your lineup to carry you through the playoffs. The only rule, you cannot pick 2 players from the same team, which I kind of like. I quietly don't want to get crushed by some stack of Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. You have to pick one or the other. That's it. You pick 12 players. Try and set yourself up for glory here. And there's a lot on the line. 2 different contests, $35 contest or the $200 contest with a $500,000 on the line in this one. It is one of the premier events in this fantasy football space. If you win this one, you go down in fantasy football history with the other gold-plated names at the FFPC. So get your contest locked in now before they fill, because I tell you what, they will. If you want to get into the FFPC Playoff Challenge, go to myffpc.com, sign up now, and you can use promo code ALARM, ALARM. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more.
That was Andrew Cooper from Fantasy Alarm reminding you to play in the FFPC Playoff Challenge 2 this weekend. $200 gets you eligible for a $100,000 grand prize. $35 gets you eligible for a $25,000 grand prize. It's 8 people or 8-person lineups, 1 player per team, myffpc.com. And I'll say this again, I know this is going to come off salesy, but I'll just let you know, I think we underestimated demand on this competition. I know we did in the 500K challenge we did last week, as that one sold out earlier than it has in probably like 5 or 6 years. This one is definitely, it's not pacing as fast as last week's, but it's pacing significantly ahead of where it was at last year. So get your entries in now, figure out who you're plugging in those entries later, but make sure you're getting your teams in. I know Sean Siegel and Com Kelly from RotoViz said that they plan on spending Saturday morning signing up and registering. It was sold out, so they couldn't do it anymore. Don't be a wish I had. Make sure you're registering now, myffpc.com, to take that shot at that $100,000 grand prize. To help us formulate some lineups here and break down each of these games is Pat Fitzmaurice, Fantasy Pros and Betting Pros. How long you been with Fantasy Pros now, Pat?
Oh, now it's a little over 4 years, I think.
4 years. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. And you guys, and I will say this too. I feel like I churn out a lot of podcasts. My God, it seems like you guys are coming out, and you have such a great team over there with you have oh God, Welsh and Joe and Worm. I mean, like the list goes on, and Seth obviously as well. Debro. I feel like I'm getting like my podcast feed. I'm like getting like 2 of them a day sometimes from Fantasy Pros, which is tremendous because the knowledge is always great on there. We're going to drop some knowledge right now with the divisional playoff previews. Let's kick things off with the game that is kicking off at 4:30 Eastern on Saturday. It is the Buffalo Bills visiting the Denver Broncos. I've been bringing this up, Pat, even before that Bills-Jaguars game. I said, so many people are telling me, smart people, that Bills-Jaguars game is the de facto AFC championship game, and whoever wins that is going to have the inside track on getting to the Super Bowl. Now, it was the Bills, which means if they're going to get to the Super Bowl, you got to beat Jacksonville on the road, Denver on the road, and probably New England on the road in consecutive weeks. But if there's one guy that can pull it off, it's Josh Neo Allen. So the question is he the one in this playoff challenge this year, Pat? Is this finally the year that the Bills make it to the bowl because he doesn't have to go through Lamar Jackson, he doesn't have to go through Patrick Mahomes this year?
I'd like to think that, but doesn't this feel like it's the weakest iteration of the Bills that we've seen in this streak where they've made like, I think they've made the playoffs like 6 straight years, and this is their 5th straight year getting to the divisional round. But it does feel like it's the weakest overall Bills team they've had. Like they have no firepower at wide receiver. I think this is probably the weakest defense they've had. They're 31st in DVOA against the run. Only the Giants were worse. Like this is a terrible run defense. So I feel like they have holes, and Josh Allen is going to have to, rip off the suit and have the Superman costume underneath for them to do it. But I think he can. And we have seen him. I don't know how many 300-yard passing games there are going to be for him in the playoffs ahead, but in the past, and I was looking at this earlier today, I think for his career, regular season, he has averaged something like, and his numbers were close to this in 2025, it's like 6.8 rushing attempts per game and like 39 rushing yards a game. In 14 career playoff games, he's at 8.8 rushing attempts a game and like 50 yards. He tacks on another 10, 11 rushing yards a game in playoff games. Like he becomes much more willing to just do it on his own. And I think that's probably what we're going to see more of from him this year. Although I still think the AFC is wide open. I could see any of these 4 teams in the Super Bowl. Wouldn't shock me if Houston got there on their defense alone. So, but I do, I think I would probably make him my choice in the playoff challenge at quarterback, though.
That's the thing. It's like if you choose Allen as your quarterback, and obviously whoever gets to the Super Bowl is getting double points. If you choose him as your quarterback, you're kind of putting a chip on the Bills to get to the Super Bowl, right? If you believe that they don't, if you believe that Buffalo is not going to make it, that they can't beat Jacksonville, Denver, and again, probably New England 3 weeks in a row. If you believe that, well, then, okay, maybe James Cook is a better choice. Outside of those two, if you want to be different, and being different is going to be crucial when you only have to fill out an 8-player lineup, Pat, is there a pivot on Buffalo that you'd feel okay with? Not great, but at least okay with. Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid. Is there anybody else that you would consider besides Allen, besides Cook, or is it open and shut? It's got to be one of these 2 guys.
I think it has to be one of these 2 just because Kincaid would be the one pivot. I don't even want Shakir. There's just not enough upside, I don't think.
No.
It's all these little short completions, and even if he, gets 10 or 11 or 12 of them like he had last week, it's just there's not a lot of meat on the bone as far as touchdowns or big plays. So, and I think I would have other plans at tight end. So I do think it's either Allen or Cook.
On the other side of the sideline here in this game, it will be Sean Payton and his merry band of Broncos trying to shut down Josh Allen in this game. The Broncos don't have a clear choice. They don't have a Jackson Smith and Jigba, a Christian McCaffrey, a Puka Nacua. They have a cavalcade of good to average options. And I have to bring up, they are the number 1 seed. They are a favorite this weekend, albeit a slight one, to beat Buffalo to host the AFC Championship game. Knowing that Bo Nix has had blow-up games before, and knowing that legs are a part of his game, and also knowing that Denver maybe is not the favorite to get to the Super Bowl out of the AFC, but they got to be darn close as far as their odds go. Could we be seeing a coronation of Bo Nix as they get to the Super Bowl this year? I think Denver has a really good track record when they're the 1 seed of getting to the Super Bowl. You look at what he could mean for you if the Broncos do end up playing 3 games in this challenge, and knowing that Nix is not simply a pocket passer, he can chew up yardage too on the ground. I think Nix is very, very intriguing here.
He's very capable of good games, and it seems like whenever I kind of write him off, he winds up exploding and having a good game. So I don't know if the Broncos and Sean Payton want to get into a sort of OK Corral situation here where it's Josh Allen versus Bo Nix, because they're outgunned there, but I wouldn't write it off. I do think Bo Nix is capable of having a good game against the Bills this week.
The Bills, you mentioned this when we were talking about Buffalo. They have a wet paper run defense. Like, it is pretty easy to get through them and to chew up yardage. There are people I know that are hesitant to utilize RJ Harvey in this challenge because of what he did at the end of the season, where Denver was still trying to win to secure that 1 seed and just was very ineffective, very inefficient. And then they're worried about this J.K. Dobbins potential of him coming back for next week if Denver is able to get that far. My personal opinion is this dude catches passes. He is their lead running back. If Dobbins does come back, dude is not going to be in any kind of football shape, hasn't played in forever. So I am of the opinion that RJ Harvey should be smack dab next to Courtland Sutton as viable options for the Broncos in this playoff challenge. How do you see RJ Harvey? How solid of a choice do you see RJ Harvey in this contest?
I'm with you, Eric. RJ Harvey has had at least 16 touches in 5 of his last 6 games. And he's going against a cotton candy run defense this week with Buffalo. So I think you're going to get a good game out of him this week. And then even if J.K. Dobbins does come back for the conference championships, assuming Denver gets there, you have to figure he's probably just going to get worked in with, a couple of series. I can't picture him getting more than, 6 to 8 touches in his first game back. I doubt they go right back to him being the primary back and Harvey sort of being the understudy. So I do think Harvey is in play for the challenge.
So that's where we stand on the Buffalo-Denver game. Let's move on to the nightcap on Saturday night, Pat, and that is an NFC tilt between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks, located live in the Pacific Northwest. Now, the people I have talked to that have played in this competition, that have done well in this competition, have told me once again this year, you're going to have to eat the chalk for most of your lineup, right? But if you pivot properly and pivot correctly in 1 or 2, maybe 3, but usually 2 spots, then you're going to have a really good shot at the 100K. I said last week that I really love the idea of George Kittle on my playoff challenge team because so many people were going with McCaffrey. This is a tight end premium competition. Why wouldn't you like George Kittle? And then he heard me and decided to blow out his Achilles and make me look like a moron. Luckily, Kittle's injury causes me to not look like a moron this week. I can't say George Kittle is your 49er for this competition. Is Christian McCaffrey the guy that you just have to eat the chalk on because of the volume. I think that the only pause I would give is I'm starting to see age and maybe wear and tear take maybe more of a toll on McCaffrey in a way I hadn't really seen before. And this is certainly not the time you want to see it at the end of the season in the playoffs as you're 2 wins away from getting to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only case you could make against Christian McCaffrey and eating the chalk would be that when Kittle missed time early in the season when he had that hamstring injury in week 1, when Kittle was out, McCaffrey only averaged 3 yards per carry because they missed Kittle as a run blocker. And then Kittle came back and McCaffrey averaged 4.3 yards per carry the rest of the way. So now he's going up against a really good Seattle run defense. So I don't know how much business he's going to be able to do as a runner. But I think with Kittle out, there's a good bet McCaffrey has at least 6 catches and probably at least 40 or 50 receiving yards. I kind of do think you need to eat the chalk with him. I mean, I don't want to play Juwan Jennings against Seattle, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And Kittle, I would have seen the appeal with Kittle because Seattle has allowed the 2nd fewest yards to wide receivers this season, but the 6th most yards to tight ends. They have a weakness against tight ends. I just don't know if I can go with Jake Tonjes in this challenge. So I think McCaffrey is pretty much a must.
Were you surprised at all that when Kittle went down that Tonjes didn't have one of these blow up? Because he's had a couple of big blow up games when Kittle missed time. I don't know if that's just what was the way that the game plan was installed, the fact that he didn't have reps with the ones. I was a little surprised at that because I was having a conversation with somebody about this, that Kittle, may or may not be ready to start next season. And I was like, I don't know how concerned the Niners are because Tonjes has been really good when Kittle's been hurt. And then he just kind of had a no-show in this game. Do you think it's going to be any different with a full week of practice with the ones and knowing that the game plan can't revolve around Kittle, or at least have Kittle as a focal point?
I think it will be, because when Kittle was out earlier in the season and he missed, I think it was 5 full games because he goes up midway through the first game, didn't come back till week 7. So weeks 2 through 6, I want to say Tonjes averaged like 4.4 catches a game and like almost 50 yards a game over that stretch. Like it was a pretty solid showing for Tonjes during that time. He looked like a really viable play. So I do think we'll see more of that. Yeah, I know he didn't really do anything after the Kittle injury last week, but I'm more confident in Tonjes. In fact, I just wrote something up on Betting Pros about why I like the over on his receiving yardage this week.
So yes to McCaffrey, maybe to Tonjes, no to Juwan Jennings.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you think Pearsall plays in this game at all?
He's been limited in practice the last 2 days. I didn't see today's practice report, but I think he does.
Okay. That's interesting. I think, the other thing too, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot here. Is Juwan Jennings not a free agent after this season, Pat?
I don't think he is.
Okay. All right. So that kind of shoots my theory on this, but with Ayuk expected to move on, I wonder if Pearsall is going to be the guy we want in the San Francisco offense next year. I know he's been dealing with some injuries, but if Jennings is back, then I think that creates more of a logjam there. We'll see what happens in drafts. Let's keep talking about this divisional playoff between the Niners and the Seattle Seahawks. In the same way, McCaffrey is the chalk here for the Niners. JSN probably is the chalk for the Seattle Seahawks. But if you do decide to pivot off of that, Pat, I would imagine it would be between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, maybe AJ Barn, I don't know. But between, let's just answer this, between Walker and Charbonnet for this challenge, who do you like better if you decide to go with a Seattle running back as your Seahawk du jour?
Weirdly, Charbonnet.
I don't know if that's weird.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it is kind of a 50-50 thing, but we've seen that he's the preferred touchdown guy, the preferred goal line guy. He's had his 2 highest carry totals of the season in his last 2 games, 17 and 18. And I think, over those 2 games, he's at a combined 3 touchdowns and like almost 200 rushing yards. So, like really early in the season, he was just kind of inefficient. And I think through the first 7 games of the season, he was averaging 2.9 yards per carry. And fantasy managers were grumbling, like, why are we wasting touches on Zach Charbonnet? Give Kenneth Walker the ball. But over his last 9 games, he's averaging like 4.8 yards per carry. And he's starting to chip in as a receiver too. So I think his snap shares they've been right around 55% for the last 4 weeks. I kind of think he's the preferred guy.
So the other thing I have to bring up, and I know if I looked at the challenge rostership on Fantasy Mojo for the FFPC Playoff Challenge last week, I can tell you that Sam Darnold's ownership was super duper low. But I also have to bring up the news out of Seattle this afternoon. Mike Duger reported that Sam Darnold is now dealing with an oblique injury, but he's confident that he's going to play in the game against the Niners on Saturday night. He said there's close to a 0% chance that he misses it. He said he's felt something during routes on air and didn't want to push it, end quote. The Darnold aspect here, and this is the story I can tell myself, and I don't know if I like this story or not, but if Seattle does get to the Super Bowl and everybody and their mother is going to have Jackson Smith and Jigba, then there is something to be said about utilizing Darnold as your quarterback and then hoping for, the crafty veteran Cooper Kupp to come out with a solid performance. AJ Barner maybe having a breakout game or something like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not great, but if you're filling out multiple entries for the playoff challenge too, and why wouldn't you? Certainly, I think you could make a case that Darnold might not be the smartest pivot in the world, but he could be a pivot that ultimately decides the competition with so many people expected to have Smith and Jigba on their roster.
Yeah, if I'm doing more than 1 entry in the challenge, Eric, then maybe I would pivot. But if I'm only doing 1 entry, I'm not just putting JSN's name in ink on my I'm doing it in my own blood. Like that would be the most essential representative of a team, I think, of anyone in the playoffs right now.
I think I'd have to go back and look. I thought he was the most owned. No, I think it was either McCaffrey or Nakua, now that I think about it, as the most owned player. I'd have to go back and look. It's not important. Let's keep pressing on and talk about the Sunday matchups here. We kick things off in New England with the Patriots hosting the Texans. Let's talk about Houston first. The most exciting player in the Texans backfield, well, quite frankly, it probably was CJ Stroud, but not a good exciting, where you fumble 5 times in a playoff game and somehow your team wins by 24. I'm telling you, that's one for the Guinness Book of World Records. I don't know how that's possible, but the Texans made it possible Monday night. The most exciting player from a positive standpoint was Woody Marks, who got well over 100 yards against the league's most expensive defense. Pat, can he do it again? And I bring this up because Nick Chubb did not get the volume that Marks did, but Nick Chubb didn't look bad. I mean, Chubb looked all right in that game too. And I think as much as we evaluate the player that we're choosing, we have to evaluate the situation and the players around him as well. Marks is the type of player that, well, I don't know. I'll ask you. If the Texans are forced to play catch up, if they are forced to throw the ball maybe more than they'd be comfortable with in the second half, does Marks thrive in that scenario? Because if you believe Houston goes down and is one and done, you have to pick the right Texan for this game. Who's going to have the biggest game, and what are the chances that it's Woody Marks, Pat?
There's a chance, Eric, but I feel like the Woody Marks' performance against the Steelers was more about the Steelers than it was against Marks. I mean, Marks has just been so low efficiency all year, 3.6 yards per carry during the regular season. He was billed as a guy who was probably meant to be a third down back coming out of college, and we didn't get all that much out of him as a pass catcher. I mean, he had 196 rushing attempts during the regular season and 24 catches. So surprisingly able to take on a lot of work as a runner. I don't know if he's going to have another good game against a Patriots run defense that has been pretty lights out this year whenever both Milton Williams, the defensive tackle, and Robert Spillane, the linebacker, have been healthy. And those guys are healthy now. They were both banged up for a while, and the Patriots run defense really fell off. But now those guys are healthy. I think the Patriots run defense is going to be really tough again. So I don't expect another 100-yard game from Woody Marks.
Yeah, I think you sold me on that. And that's fine. But the other player I shouldn't say the other player I'll bring up. I don't expect Nico Collins to play in this game. Reports today was that he was not spotted at practice. He gets concussed Monday night. For him to be available on Sunday would take, now I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would take a small miracle for him to be available. I don't think he is. We saw Christian Kirk blow up. Even before the injury, even before the concussion, Kirk was playing well. It's like Matt Damon and Rounders. I was winning before this guy even got here, right? And so that's what Kirk was doing, right? You also have Dalton Schultz, who has been an underrated tight end pretty much all season, by myself included, too. You have him as an option here. And then, of course, the rookie Jaden Higgins, who a lot of people thought should have been drafted in the first round, very, very close to being a first-round receiver. So you have other options. You have other pivots here. On Houston, and you can't play their defense in this competition because there are no kickers and defenses. You have to pick a skill position guy. If you don't like Marks, if Collins is not going to play, Pat, who do you shift your focus to as your Texan choice?
I'm really intrigued by Jaden Higgins. I love what we've seen from him, and I think he could be a star in the making. The only thing about Jaden Higgins, he could potentially get a lot of FaceTime with Christian Gonzalez of the Patriots, although Gonzalez himself sustained a concussion, but Christian Gonzalez doesn't have to travel and has an extra day of recovery time. So he's got the full week. I think there's a better than 50-50 chance he plays, although it's hard to know concussion severity or whatever. I mean, if Nico plays, it pretty much makes a mockery of the concussion protocol because he'll have had 5 days between games and also would have to travel. So if Christian Gonzalez plays, like Schultz is the guy I want here. I think Dalton Schultz would be very busy. I don't know if we could totally bet on a repeat for Christian Kirk because I wonder if Nico doesn't play, I wonder if Kirk gets pushed outside and they have Jalen Noel play in the slot, or if it's more Xavier Hutchinson, or, Kirk, it was his time to shine last week. I don't know if I want to bank on the repeat, but I think there's a really good bet we would see at least 7 or 8 targets for Dalton Schultz. And, that would kind of be the way I'd be inclined to go here.
Not that I'm just scripting this for New England having the lead in the fourth quarter in this game, or maybe even in the third quarter. And if Houston is forced on 1, 2, God forbid, 3 drives to throw the ball to get back into the game, and if New England's just keeping everything in front of them, well, who's open in that scenario? I mean, it's Schultz. I could can see it in my head now of Stroud just dumping it off and Schultz getting these little 6, 7, 8 yard catches, and 3 or 4 of them on a drive. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you look at the end of the game. Oh yeah, Schultz. The Texans lost by 11, but Schultz had 11 catches for, 109 yards and a touchdown. Wait, what? So yeah, I think he's underrated. And Steve Yergalis, who's in the YouTube chat right now, has been reminding me of Dalton Schultz the last few weeks, and it's ingrained into my skull right now. I get it. Dalton Schultz, definitely a viable person that we need to consider in this competition. Over to the New England side, I can't believe I'm saying this, Pat, but I do believe that there is a plurality of FFPC players out there that will comfortably be choosing Ramondre Stevenson over Trevion Henderson if they decide to go with the Patriots running back in this competition. I think people are going to be surprised. Maybe I'll be the one who's surprised when they see the ownership of my God, this many people pick Stevenson instead of May, instead of Diggs, instead of Henry, instead of Trevion Henderson. I don't know, man. I think there's something to it.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like he has been the preferred option lately. And, as far as, well, snap share, I mean, they had a do or die playoff game last week, and he played 62.5% of the offensive snaps. And Ramondre has become a force in the passing game too. Like, he has caught at least what, 2 or 3 balls every game dating back to like the end of November, the start of December. Like, he's been really good. I'm looking at his receiving totals over his last 6 games, including last week's game. 40 yards, 27 yards, 27, 55, 22, 75. And he's been bringing it as a runner too. He's got 4 touchdown runs over his last 4 games. So I get it. But if you want to distinguish yourself, I could also make a really good case for playing Travion Henderson, because we know how explosive he can be. It's just, if you're betting on who's going to get more touches in that backfield, I think you have to bet Ramondre, though.
It's the age-old question of explosiveness versus volume, something that we mull over even in our season-long drafts, right? And we had a decision to make on the Packers last week: Josh Jacobs versus Christian Watson, volume versus explosiveness. Now you look at this Patriots backfield, volume versus explosiveness, and certainly I think when it comes to the running back position, I think most people will lean Stevenson, and so it could be Henderson as the pivot here for New England. Speaking of pivots and other tight ends that are underrated, that we haven't talked about this yet, Pat. If you look at the tight ends in this competition, there's no Mark Andrews this year in the playoffs. There's no Sam Laporta. There's no Travis Kelce. Like, these tight ends that we've been accustomed to playing or seeing play, we can't utilize them in this competition. And instead we have, the small army of tight ends that the Rams have, right? You look at Seattle, and AJ Barner's not very exciting. No George Kittle for the Niners, right? You have Dalton Kincaid underwhelming in Buffalo, and then really no standout tight end in Denver. You need to fill the tight end, at least one tight end position in this lineup. Certainly you have 2 flexes as well, so you go with multiple tight ends. But a tight end that we probably should talk about here as consideration, either for that position or one of your flexes, is one Hunter Henry. As a Hunter Henry owner, this past year in several leagues, one of the biggest drawbacks for me is seeing Drake May throw to a large white man in the secondary and thinking that it was Hunter Henry when it was in fact Austin Hooper. Drove me nuts. And maybe that happens in the postseason as well. But dude, Henry caught 60 balls this year. I mean, there is something to be said about Hunter Henry in this game, even if you believe the Patriots are playing multiple games.
Yeah, the only thing is, and this, having invested in Hunter Henry, feast or famine.
Yep.
And he was very streaky this year, and you can't survive the famine in this contest, obviously. So the only thing is, there are better options, either a quarterback or a running back for the Patriots. Whereas, with Dalton Schultz, there's really no one else I'm drawn to in the Texans. And even, Colston Loveland, you could make the case, is probably one of the better options on the Bears, if not the best option. So I think, in a contest like this, I want to go with either Loveland or Schultz, and that would probably disqualify Henry from consideration for me personally.
Yeah, no, I get it. And Drake May is good enough that he is able to spread the ball around. He spread the ball around all season. Kyle Williams, Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Henderson. Like, there's so many guys. And you mentioned Stevenson really stepping up in the passing game too. So yeah, there's a lot of different options for New England here. Now, I want to get to the final game, and it is the Rams and the Bears. Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua were 2 very highly owned Rams in the last week's challenge. I expect them to be highly owned again as well. And I made this case last week, and I stand by it for this challenge as well, because I think you can apply the same logic. Normally, quarterbacks score more than wide receivers. It's just the way that the fantasy scoring is set up in the FFPC. So even if you do believe the Rams get all the way to the Super Bowl, you can make the case that Puka Nacua is still actually the better play, because there's been plenty of games this season where Nacua actually outscored Stafford, even though Stafford was throwing him the ball. I think it comes down to these two players, unless you can make a case for somebody else. But for me, it comes down to Stafford or Nacua. Pat, I lean towards Nacua in this.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know if the Bears have a cornerback who can hang with them. My only fear about this game, as someone who would love to see the Rams get their revenge on behalf of our Packers, Eric, is like what the forecast is. And as someone who was out earlier walking my dogs just before this show, it's freaking cold out there, and it's going to be really freaking cold on Saturday night, and it could be pretty breezy too. I worry a little bit about the Southern California team rolling into Chicago on the shores of Lake Michigan, and how they're going to operate. I saw I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I know the Sean McVay record in sub-zero or sub-freezing temperatures is not all that great. So I'm a little concerned about that, but what are the better options? I don't think you can look at Kyren Williams, considering, the amount of work Blake Corum has been getting lately. Although I do think the Rams could have some success in the running game this week, especially no TJ Edwards for the Bears. That hurts them. But I do kind of think that Puka is probably the essential play. I agree with you. There's no case to be made for Davante Adams, is there? He's just been way too touchdown reliant.
Okay. Yes, that is correct. The case that you lay out for Adams, and listen, it's not going to be a strong one that I can make, at least. You mentioned the cold weather. I don't know how much that affects Adams, given all of his playoff experience in cold weather in Green Bay. Or as Troy Aikman would say, Green Bay. I think that the other thing too, because he is touchdown dependent in a small sample size here, like this 3-week sprint, maybe he just goes off, right? Maybe he catches like 4 touchdowns, and you are automatically different than so many other players in this contest, because you had Adams instead of Nacua. And correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this has changed, and I haven't looked at it that closely over the last few Rams games, but there was so many times that they would go single wide receiver inside the 10 or inside the 5, and that single wide receiver wasn't Nacua. It was actually Davante Adams. Like, you were seeing Nacua on the bench quite a bit. And I think the Rams were lining up like 8 tight ends in those formations anyway. It was like insane how many tight ends they were using. But I think that's the case you make for Adams. Now, 13 targets last week. He only catches 5 of them. I know a lot of people were down, like Film Bros were down on what they saw from Adams last week. And I'm sure he is still dealing with that hamstring injury. I'm sure it's not fully healed. And it certainly is affecting his play. I think he's in the conversation, but for me, Pat, to your credit, or to your point, it is a short conversation, and I don't know how much I'd want to be invested into Davante Adams. And on that same token, the fact that Blake Corum has really stepped up his volume, does he sort of make both running backs in this contest untenable? Like, you can't use either one because Sean McVay is using both of them.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's typically Kyren Williams getting like 65% of the snaps. But when Corum's in there, he gets touches on a much higher percentages of his snaps than Kyren Williams does. So I agree. Like, it's possible if things work the Rams' way that both of these guys could smash this week. But because it is tough to pick which one is going to hit, I agree with you. I kind of want to stay away from that before. And by the way, Eric, you were not imagining that Puka, when they play, and the Rams, I think, have set some sort of unofficial record for playing most snaps in 3 tight ends this year. It's never Puka as the one wide receiver on the field. Even when Davante Adams was hurt, it was Kanata Mumpfield who was like the one receiver who would play. I know, it was crazy. So for some reason, they do not like playing Puka in 13 personnel.
I wonder why that is. Like,
it's weird.
Okay, so first thing that immediately comes to my head, and I don't know if this is the case, but it's a condensed field, right? and Puka Nacua, he does not treat his body well when he's playing football. He has reckless abandon. And I wonder if McVay is like, look, putting Nacua out there on that short of a field is the equivalent of launching a metallic ball in a pinball machine. And he just doesn't want to give Nacua the opportunity to get hurt. And maybe, his strength is not in that, how he wins is not necessarily on that short of a field. So maybe he's I don't want to say neutered, but he's not at the peak of his powers there, and it's just not worth it. I don't know. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Sean McVay, I'm sure, has been asked about this. At least I would ask him about it. I'd love to know what he has to say. Anyway, let's move on to the final team, the only team we haven't talked about yet, the Chicago Bears. I was talking with a lot of upset Packers fans and a lot of people in disbelief about how the Bears came back and beat Green Bay. It's wild, Pat. I don't know if you realize this. The last win the Packers had this year was against the Bears, and they have since lost to the Bears twice more since that win, which is wild to think about. Both those games, heartbreaking fashion. You mentioned it earlier about how they should not have lost either one of those games. All these things had to go the Bears' way, and they did. And this is like the 7th or 8th fourth quarter comeback for the Bears. It's not like this just happened to the Packers. It happened to a lot of teams at the hands of the Bears this year. And I just kind of shrugged my shoulders. After it happened, I said, the worst thing for Green Bay was getting up 21-3 in that game, because you knew the Bears are going to come back, because it's what they do. And maybe, just maybe, with all these things falling the Bears' way this year, maybe it is their year. And dare I say that the Bears, with as wide open as the chase for the Super Bowl trophy, the Lombardi trophy is this year, maybe it's the Bears' year with all this weird stuff that has fallen their way. And to their credit, the plays that they have made to keep themselves in these games and ultimately make the plays to win the game. I ask you about the chances of a Bears Super Bowl, because that will affect who you choose as your Bears representative. Maybe you want to stay away from guys like Luther Burden or DeAndre Swift. Well, maybe not Swift, but maybe Caleb Williams comes into play here as well. Your thoughts on the Bears not only beating the Rams this week, but then beating whoever they would face in the NFC title game?
I think they could beat the Rams because of the cold. I think they're capable of beating the 49ers, as we saw a few weeks ago when they took the 49ers down to the wire and fell just short. I don't think they could beat Seattle. The thing is, Eric, the Bears have the worst defense left in the playoffs, and it's not close. I mean, this defense is bad. It's probably the worst unit left in the playoffs of any of these teams. And that is the big problem for them. So they would have to score a mound of points to get there. And we've seen that Caleb is kind of a notoriously slow starter. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can afford a slow start the rest of the way. They got away with it against the Packers. And by the way, I'm going to lay one more depressing stat on you, Eric. Do you know how many offensive snaps in the 3 games against the Packers the Chicago Bears took with a lead?
Is it 0?
It's 0.
Oh my God.
They did not take an offensive snap with a lead in any of those 3 games and somehow won 2 of them.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, it's this, this term gets thrown around a lot, but there's something about that team. It's one of those things too, where it's like, all the things are going their way this year, and then next year everything could just blow up in their face. Yeah. I don't know, but you're right. I mean, I know there's some smart people picking them to beat the Rams this week. Obviously, if they have to go to Seattle for the NFC Championship game, I mean, that's going to be a hornet's nest, and I don't know if they get by there. So I don't know. It's something to consider. The other thing that I want to consider here too with you, and this is when I was talking with Joe Bartle, another Wisconsin native from RotoWire, on this show last week. And I was pitching him on Colston Loveland for the playoff challenge, and he told me not to forget about DeAndre Swift. Even in tight end premium scoring, he thought that Swift was another guy worth bringing up. Does it come down to these 2 players for you, or would you throw in Luther Burden or somebody else, maybe even DJ Moore in this as well?
Yes, Joe is a smart fellow Scotty boy, because it does come to those two two guys for me. I don't want Odunze, who we
No.
haven't seen be good since like week 4. I don't really want DJ Moore because I just don't trust the chemistry between he and Caleb Williams, which flickers on and off. I do think it, and Monangai just doesn't get enough work. Like Monangai is really good, but he is the Montgomery to Swift's Jahmyr Gibbs, basically. The Swift is certainly a poor man's Jahmyr Gibbs, but I think it has to be one of those two guys.
Yeah. I think, and we have to bring in ownership in this too, a projected ownership of what we think is going to happen. And of course, we're talking about the FFPC Playoff Challenge too. There's no draft, there's no salary cap, no convoluted rules. You're just picking your 8 players here for this competition. Will it be Loveland or Swift for you? Will it be somebody else? Will it be Burden? Will it be DJ Moore? These are all things that you have to ask yourself and then answer as you plunk down $200 or $35 if you want to play for $100,000 or $25,000. Register now, myffpc.com, myffpc.com. We've broken down all the angles. We've talked to death about these games. The one thing we haven't done is formulate a couple of lineups for you, which is what we're going to do. Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros. I'm Eric Balkman. When we come back from this break, we'll assemble an 8-team lineup, 2 8-team lineups. Pat will have one. I will have one. We'll assemble them live on air. Feel free to dupe me because I can't play in it. And you never know. Pat might be churning out $100,000 into his wallet with this lineup he's about to produce when we come back. You're watching FFPC Insider Access right here live on the Better Sports Network.
What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here, Fantasy Alarm, and it's that time of year at the FFPC Playoff Challenge. This is one of my very favorite contests. Forget about all your redraft leagues. Forget about DFS. This is one last chance for glory, and it comes during the NFL playoffs. Yes, you can go in with no salaries, no drafts, no convoluted stuff, and create your lineup to carry you through the playoffs. The only rule, you cannot pick 2 players from the same team, which I kind of like. I quietly don't want to get crushed by some stack of Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua. You have to pick one or the other. That's it. You pick 12 players. Try and set yourself up for glory here. And there's a lot on the line. 2 different contests, $35 contest or the $200 contest with a $500,000 on the line in this one. It is one of the premier events in this fantasy football space. If you win this one, you go down in fantasy football history with the other gold-plated names at the FFPC. So get your contest locked in now before they fill, because I tell you what, they will. If you want to get into the FFPC Playoff Challenge, go to myffpc.com, sign up now, and you can use promo code ALARM, ALARM. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more.
Welcome back to FFPC Insider Access here live on the Better Sports Network. I'm joined tonight by Pat Fitzmaurice from Fantasy Pros. You know his work there as well as Betting Pros. And tonight we are going to be putting together a couple of lineups in the FFPC Playoff Challenge 2. You can register now. myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Go there, join for $200. You can be eligible for a $100,000 grand prize. If you want to play for $35, you're still eligible for a $25,000 grand prize. Registrations have been moving at a faster pace than they were last year, so I would encourage you right now, just go ahead and sign up. You can formulate the lineups on Saturday before the games kick off. Just make sure you have those entries set aside and ready to go for you at the playoff FFPC Playoff Challenge 2 at myffpc.com. So I have built a lineup here, Pat, and I think the way we'll do this is the way we did it last week with Joe. We'll go position by position. Quarterback, we'll talk about our running backs, our receivers, our tight end, and then, of course, our 2 flexes at the end, which are always fun wild cards here. I will kick it off, and this kind of gives it away. I believe there are several teams that are capable of winning the Super Bowl, maybe more than several this year, as you alluded to earlier, at least from the AFC standpoint. For this particular lineup, I'm betting on New England getting to the championship game. And if New England gets there, it's too difficult for me to single out one running back or one receiver or one tight end. So I'm just getting the guy that's throwing to all those guys, and that's Drake May, who is going to be my quarterback in this competition. Again, hoping that New England gets to the Super Bowl, so I'll get double points from Mr. May. He is my quarterback. Who is your quarterback?
I'm going to go with Josh Allen.
There you go.
And yeah, it's May is there's an excellent case to be made for May. The one worry I have about May is that even if he does play at least 2 more games, those 2 games could be against Houston and Denver, which have such just rugged pass defenses.
Mm-hmm.
Although, Josh Allen is going right into the teeth of the Denver defense. I suppose technically you could say the same thing about Josh Allen. He could get Denver and Houston too.
Right. Now here's to at least to me the difference, playoff experience. Like because
Sure.
both of these guys can sling it, right? And maybe New England has the better supporting cast around their quarterback, right? But both these guys can sling it. Both of them can run. I think people forget about how good Drake May is with his legs. The difference to me is experience and the fact that Allen is sort of like an extra running back or a primary running back once you get inside the 5, and New England doesn't really utilize May like that. So even though I picked May as my quarterback, here I am making the case for Josh Allen. Ultimately, Pat, it comes down to if either one of these teams make it to the Super Bowl, you're going to be glad you have either one of these quarterbacks on your squad.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Running back, you took Josh Allen. My bill is going to be James Cook. Cook is a guy, you could make the defense argument, right? With who he's going to be going up against here for the remainder of the postseason. I'm with you. I just don't see a player that has the combination of volume and upside that Cook has. Cook has more upside than Cook obviously has more volume. He's going to get more volume than Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid. And I'd make the case that he's the more explosive player and has the clear upside over those 2 players, even though that they play at the more volatile positions. So Cook was an easy choice. Once I made the decision that I wasn't taking Josh Allen, Cook was an easy decision for me at running back. Also rolling with some more chalk. We talked about this earlier. I have Christian McCaffrey as my other running back in this competition as well. They are going to scheme him up. They know that if they are going to beat the Seahawks, McCaffrey has to be a big part of it because they will not have the services of George Kittle. I can foresee a lot of catches for McCaffrey in this game, and it's probably one and done for him, but I foresee a 20-point game from McCaffrey. So those are that's my backfield, Cook, McCaffrey.
Yeah, so I'm out of the James Cook business because of Josh Allen, but I am going to echo you on Christian McCaffrey. I think you have to go that route. And look no further than the 49ers Week 18 loss to Seattle when those 2 teams were playing for the bye. And I think the 49ers had like 170 or 180 yards of offense in that game. It was pretty much all McCaffrey. 22 carries for 69 yards, 9 catches for 73 yards. So I think he is going to play a similarly large role in this game. 31 touches in that last game. I wouldn't be surprised if he was close to 30 again this week. So I'm going with him in that one spot. Do you want to go ahead and give me your number 2?
No, I got Cook and McCaffrey as my 2 running backs. So
sorry.
Go ahead with your number 2.
All right, so I have to, we talked about this dilemma about what to do with the Bears, and I am going to cast my lot with DeAndre Swift as my second guy. I don't know how contrarian that's going to be. The Bears are kind of a tough team to handle in this, but I do think there's potential. I love that offensive line. And, he's got dual run catch potential. So I'm going to go there. I'm going DeAndre Swift with my second running back.
Swift and McCaffrey will be the backfield for one Pat Fitzmaurice here. Let's move on to the wideouts. The chalk of all chalk here for me. No surprise. I'm going to go with Puka Nacua as my Ram. I'm going with Jackson Smith and Jigba as my Seahawk. As Smith and Jigba, again, no defenses in this, so I can't pick the Seattle defense. I don't know if I'd want to as the number 1 seed, although I always bring this up several years ago in the 500K. Well, back then it was only a $100,000 grand prize, but the guy who won it chose Seattle's defense when they were a high seed, and that was the year that they beat Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl because of the double points of those two defensive touchdowns, or maybe there's a special teams touchdown in that Super Bowl. The guy ended up leapfrogging all over all these other teams because he was the only one who had the Seattle defense, and he ended up winning $100K for it. So not saying that the defense would be a bad play in the 500K, but you can't play him here because there is no room for defenses. As the Seahawks go, or as JSN goes, so go the Seahawks. That's my opinion on this. He had one of the highest target shares season long that I've ever seen before. I think that it continues. I think it has to continue in the postseason as well. I would say that I would maybe look at the running back if it wasn't a split backfield, but it is with Walker and Charbonnet. Like if they had a McCaffrey type guy back there, then yeah, it'd be an easy pivot off of JSN, but they don't. So it's Smith and Jigba for me. And then Nakua is the guy that can go nuclear. This is a short contest. It's only 3 weeks long. One game of going nuclear might win it for you. 2 games of going nuclear, I mean, it's going to put you right up at the top above everybody else. So to me, it was just too good to pass up. Those 2 players, too good. The opportunity, too good for me to pass up. I'm going Nakua and Smith and Jigba as my wide receivers. Pat, who do you have on the perimeter?
Yeah, when I was starting to plot out my plans for this, Eric, like that's kind of where I fell. Like those guys are sort of the building blocks. I mean, Puka Nacua, you have to go back to the end of November to find a game where he didn't get double-digit targets. And in that game, he had 9 targets. And the week before that, he had double-digit targets. It's just like death taxes and Puka being peppered with targets by Matthew Stafford. So I think you have to go with him. And then, as you said, I mean, what was Jackson Smith and Jigba's target share? Like 37%?
Yeah, it was insane.
It was
35.
Yeah, and like when 25, you call a guy a target hog when he has a 25% target share, to say nothing of 35%. So, yeah, I think those 2 are just the essential building blocks.
So you and I are of the same mind on wide receiver then, right?
Yes.
Okay, so perfect.
Yes.
So we have our wide receivers lined up. Let's move on to the tight end position. This is you went with Swift. I'm going with Colston Loveland as my tight end here. Now, perhaps this is recency bias, but if you look at what this dude has done over the last 3 or maybe even 4 games, including the regular season, he's just a completely different player than he was at the start of the season when he was recovering from, I want to say, a shoulder injury that he had sustained and kind of got to camp. Like they worked him in slower. To me now, the Bears' ground game is obviously significant, but the passing game is fueled by Luther Burden and Colston Loveland. And Loveland it seemed like every single time that Caleb Williams dropped back to pass, he was finding an open Loveland. Or if he wasn't finding an open Loveland, he is pumping the ball into a covered Loveland, right? He loves throwing to this guy. This guy could have a Travis Kelce-like impact on this challenge if the Bears do get all the way to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with Loveland as my tight end, probably chalky because, as I stated earlier, there's not a lot of great tight end options here, but I'm willing to cast my lot with Colston Loveland at tight end. Who are you going with, Pat?
Yeah, just to one more point about Loveland. Going into week 17, his high for the season in targets in a game had been 7. Last 3 games, 10, 13, and 15 targets. He is just taken over in this offense, and it's been impressive to watch. Like this kid he's got it. So I'm going with, we talked about him earlier, Dalton Schultz. I do think with Nico Collins out, he is going to be a busy man this weekend in Foxborough. So I'm going with him. Plus, I just don't think any of the other Houston Texans options are all that attractive.
I'm with you. By the way, more to come on Dalton Schultz. In fact, let's do it right now. Because as we get into my flexes, that is who I have as my first flex is
Nice.
One Dalton Schultz. I think for the kind of the reasons I stipulated before, when I visualize this game in my mind, I just see a quiet first half for Dalton Schultz, maybe 2 catches or something like that. But I think he does pile them on in the second half where he gets 5 or 6, maybe even 6 or 7 catches. We'll see in the second half. But I think this is going to be a second half game for Dalton Schultz. I think that the loss of Nico Collins is only going to make that only going to make him more desirable as a target in this offense if the Texans are going to move the ball down the field. Underrated guy all season long, and I think it's time I recognize, like, look, this is the time to play him. You and I are not believers in Woody Marks, at least for this challenge. And we don't, I mean, quite frankly, when it comes down to Higgins and Kirk and Knoll and all these other guys, I don't really know what to expect. Like, I don't know what the Houston game plan is going to look like as far as involving these wide receivers. What I do know is that Dalton Schultz, regardless of the game plan, he's going to be involved. He's going to be my my flex number one here. Pat, who is your first flex in this challenge?
My first flex is going to be RJ Harvey. And I thought about going with Cortland Sutton. I wouldn't be surprised if Sutton had a big game this week against Buffalo, but what I couldn't get past is that the following week, he's going to run into either Houston or New England. So it's going to be Christian Gonzalez or why am I blanking on the shutdown quarter for
Stingley?
Stingley. Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
So so I have to lean Harvey, especially I want a piece of that matchup against the Bills and their bad run defense. So I think, Harvey has the potential to have a real big game this week.
I'll be honest with you. I had RJ Harvey down as my other flex, but I wrestled around with it. And since you are going with Harvey, I will go with Sutton. At some point, Denver is going to need to throw the ball. Their defense is good, borderline great, but they cannot rely on that for 3 games in the postseason. At some point, they're going to have to rely on one of their perimeter options. I don't know if the volume is going to be there for Marvin Mims. I don't know if the experience is there for Pat Bryant. And quite frankly, I don't know if Troy Franklin is good enough to command enough targets in this offense the way that he would earn them, the way that Sutton earns them, the way that he commands them. He's a big body, maybe not the biggest game breaker in the world, but we have seen him make some big plays this year, enough for me to say, hey, I love Harvey. I think he's going to have a field day against Buffalo. I'm not worried about Dobbins. He would be my primary choice, but if he's my 1A, Sutton is my 1B. So that's who I'll go with for my second flex. Who's rounding up your lineup, Fitz?
Feels like I'm pretty chalky to this point, Eric. So I need a little bit of variation. And you talked about, Ramondre maybe being the chalk in some ways with New England. I'm going to go with the home run hitter and go with Travion Henderson as my last flex guy.
Yeah, Henderson is the type of guy, again, where, he only needs 1 or 2 plays to make a week. And I know he's not going up against some of the bad defenses he did go up against this season where he had some blow-up games, but certainly the potential's still there. Houston's anybody can give up big plays, even a defense as good as Houston. And then if New England moves on, quite frankly, they will have already faced the toughest defense they're going to face, right? And then it could be wheels up for Henderson. It's not only a choice for the first week, it's a choice for the entire challenge. That's the way we have to look at that. So you wrap it up with Travion Henderson there. To recap our lineups for the FFPC Playoff Challenge 2. Mine is Drake May at quarterback. My running backs are Christian McCaffrey and James Cook. My receivers are Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Cortland Sutton. And I'm going with the 2 tight end set with Colston Loveland and Dalton Schultz. Pat Fitzmaurice is going with Josh Allen under center. His running backs are going to be a lot. Christian McCaffrey, DeAndre Swift, RJ Harvey, and Travion Henderson in this. Wide receivers are Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and then the tight end will be one Dalton Schultz. Register now, myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Utilize these lineups and hopefully win $100,000 doing so. Register before 4:30 p.m. on Saturday, or if the contest fills up before then, just register now. Worry about the lineups later, myffpc.com. So, Pat, as we get ready to wrap things up, do you have a Super Bowl prediction for us? Did you formulate that lineup based on the 2 teams that are going to be playing for all the marbles in February in your head?
Oh man, I think Seattle gets there, and I think the Denver Broncos get there. I know they have the defense, and I think they can squeeze enough offense out of Bo Nix and RJ Harvey.
2 teams that have been very successful when they've gotten the 1 seed at getting to the Super Bowl. In fact, I think I saw after Seattle won the 1 seed in the final week of the season that they have never been the 1 seed and not made it to the Super Bowl. Every single year that they've been the 1 seed, they've gotten to this. They haven't always won it, but they've gotten to the Super Bowl. So that'll be interesting to watch. It's going to be a great weekend of divisional football. Pat, for anybody who's not familiar, at Fitz_FF on X, FantasyPros.com, of course, all the work you do at Betting Pros. Is there a schedule that, like, what are you working on now as we're entering the non-playing season here pretty quickly?
Yeah, working on right now rookie stuff, diving into the rookie class, getting ready to do some, mock drafts, and sort of stack my board for rookie drafts and dynasties. So I've been plunging into prospect stuff the last couple of days. But I already have my first set of rankings out for redraft leagues. Dynasty rankings, we're keeping spruced up. And of course, we're always churning out podcasts, both betting content. I do host a weekly golf podcast, the Betting Pros PGA podcast. And, we're still churning out fantasy football shows throughout the off season. So I hope people check out the Fantasy Pros football podcast.
He is a gentleman. He is a scholar, but most of all, he's a Scotty. Pat Fitzmaurice joining me tonight. Pat, always a fun time chopping it up with you. Thank you so much for spending these last 2 hours with me and with the viewers. I wish you nothing but the best in 2026. Keep up the great work over at Fantasy Pros, and we will do this again soon.
I hope so, Eric. Thanks for having me. It's always great talking to you. And in this case, you were also shoulder to cry on, which I appreciate.
Little therapy, little back and forth therapy that we had tonight. There's always next year, as they always say. There's always time to register, at least for right now, in the FFPC Playoff Challenge. To do so now, myffpc.com. Take your chance at still another 6-figure grand prize before the season ends. That will complete tonight's show. We will be back next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern with Rotoballer's own Frank Emirante, who will join me for 2 full hours. That's going to be a lot of fun as we preview the conference championship games. Shout out and to our producer, Sean Engel, and for Sean Engel, for Pat Fitzmaurice, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been FFPC Insider Access on the Better Sports Network. Enjoy the games, everybody. Talk with you next week.